History often begins as a story of certainty. In classrooms and textbooks, it is presented as a clear sequence of events, dates, wars, leaders, and outcomes that seem final and unquestionable. From ancient civilizations to modern nations, everything appears structured and complete, as if the past has already been fully discovered and neatly recorded. But this is only the surface. What they don't teach you is that this version of history is carefully selected, simplified to make it easier to understand and easier to teach. The deeper layers, the contradictions, the uncertainties, and the missing voices, are often left out. Real history does not begin with certainty, it begins with fragments. It is built from pieces of evidence, many of which are incomplete, biased, or open to interpretation. The story we learn is not the full story, it is a version shaped by time, power, and perspective. As we move further into history, the idea of perspective becomes impossible to ignore. Every event has more than one side, yet we are often taught only one. A revolution, for example, may be celebrated as a moment of freedom and progress, while for others it may represent chaos, loss, and destruction. The same battle can be remembered as a heroic victory by one nation and a painful defeat by another. These differences are not just opinions, they are reflections of identity, culture, and political influence. What they don't teach you is how strongly these perspectives shape what becomes official history. Governments and institutions tend to promote narratives that strengthen unity and pride, sometimes leaving out uncomfortable truths. Over time, these narratives become accepted as fact, repeated across generations until they feel unquestionable. But when new evidence emerges or when overlooked voices are finally heard, these stories begin to shift, revealing that history is not fixed, it is constantly evolving. As the narrative unfolds, another hidden truth becomes clear: much of history has simply disappeared. Wars have destroyed archives, natural disasters have erased entire cities, and time itself has worn away countless records. What survives is often accidental, leaving historians to reconstruct the past from scattered clues. This creates gaps, spaces where we can only guess what really happened. Even the records that remain are not always reliable. Many were written by elites, kings, officials, and scholars, who focused on their own perspectives, often ignoring the experiences of ordinary people. What they don't teach you is how much of human history exists in silence, in stories that were never written down or were deliberately ignored. These missing pieces shape our understanding just as much as the information we have. They remind us that what we know about the past is incomplete, and that some parts of history may never be fully recovered. Moving deeper, the role of power becomes undeniable. History is not just recorded, it is controlled. Those who hold power often decide which events are remembered and which are forgotten. They shape narratives to justify their actions, to maintain authority, or to create a sense of identity among people. This influence can turn complex figures into simple heroes or villains, reducing their actions to easy labels that fit a particular narrative. What they don't teach you is how much interpretation goes into these portrayals. Real historical figures lived in complicated circumstances, making decisions based on pressures, beliefs, and limitations that are often lost in simplified accounts. By looking beyond these simplified stories, we begin to see the human side of history, the uncertainty, the contradictions, and the moral complexity that define real events. It becomes clear that history is not just about what happened, but about how those events are remembered and explained. In the end, real history is not a finished story, it is an ongoing process of discovery and reinterpretation. What they don't teach you is that history is alive, constantly changing as new evidence is found and new perspectives are considered. It is not something to memorize, but something to question and explore. The more you dig, the more you realize that there is no single, complete version of the past. Instead, there are many overlapping stories, each adding depth and meaning to our understanding. This is what makes history truly powerful, it connects the past to the present, shaping how we see the world and ourselves. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: the truth of history is never as simple as it seems. It is layered, complex, and always waiting to be discovered by those willing to look beyond what they have been taught.